Taranaki Maunga, the mountain named Taranaki. This mountain is on the west coast of the North Island of New Zealand. It is one of the tallest, most perfectly conical mountains in the world. Its geology, geography and geometry is what I wish to talk to you about today. To begin with today, I would like to recount the story according to Maori mythology of how Mount Taranaki came to be on the west coast of the North Island. According to the mythology, Taranaki originally resided in the centre of the island, along with 4 other warrior mountains. Also, there was a beautiful female mountain who they all adored. Eventually, there was a great fight over her affection. Mount Taranaki, after one huge battle where he eventually lost, fled, and in his fleeing gouged out the Whanganui River. It is said that there was this stone, a guide stone named Rauhauto. It is said that Taranaki followed this stone and was led to where it resides now. The details of the placement of Taranaki in its present location include in one story the stone flying through the air around the Parihaka ranges and flying over a hill, a lava dome called Puke Tewhiti. One of the stories of the guide stone goes as follows. Taranaki, on his journey from Taupo, was preceded by a stone, a female of great mana called Toka Arahutu, which acted as a pilot or guide, keeping well in advance of Taranaki. The day preceding the capture of Taranaki by Puakai, Toka Arahutu had reached within a short distance of the coast on the south side of Waiwaraiti, Stony River. On awakening in the morning, she turned to see if Taranaki was following, and then discovered that Puakai had thrown out a new arm or spur in the night, encircling and making a prisoner of Taranaki. Toka Arahutu has remained until the present day a thing of great veneration to all the tribes, still looking upon her old friend and follower with longing eyes. But the great mana which she once possessed has since the coming of Pakeha departed, and men who now fearlessly touch her do not die as in former times. The carvings on the face of this rock were done generations ago by a party of Ngāti Tama, 70 in number, who dug up the stone with great labour and removed it, but the same night it returned to its old resting place. The infringement of the tapu implied in this act of Ngāti Tama brought its own reward, for they all died under the influence of makutu, or witchcraft. Stone, in its journey from Taupo, was accompanied by many familiar spirits in the shape of lizards, who dwelt under the rock. There is still a tension between Taranaki and Tongariro. The Maori are wary of setting up between them in case Taranaki returns. If Taranaki is seen with a cloud above, he is crying over Pianga. If he is shining in the sunset, he is showing off his glory. Tongariro lets off smoke and ash as a reminder to Taranaki to not come back. There are many more stories about the people of Taranaki, the region, and its history. It is one of the oldest settled places on the North Island. There are stories of original ancestors being part human and part supernatural. There are names for the people that were here before the Maori arrived. The stories of the settlement of New Zealand have quite a bit of conflict in what is truth and what is convenient fable. In this video, I'm attempting to lay out some of the observations I have made regards the Great Mountain. Amongst it, I would like to allude to some of the things which have happened around the mountain, but I will always be wishing to concentrate on this great being. In the recent few years, there have been 3 natural features of the North Island awarded legal status as being people. The mountain Urewera on the northeast coast of the North Island, the river which I've spoken of, Whanganui, and now Mount Taranaki is now being acknowledged in the same way. This is fantastic news. Following this example, 2 rivers in India have also been in recent years named as beings and gifted legal rights as people. This was under example from what New Zealand has done. In the opening images of this video, you would have seen the geometric shape that the mountain makes from above. It was seeing this shape which reminded me of the Mandelbrot set. The circle, which is quite tight and sharp and perfect, is the boundary of the national park of the mountain, and therefore has been man-made, though it follows the natural contour of the slopes of the mountain, so is reasonably accurate within itself. You would have also seen photos from the summit of the shadow of the mountain projected down onto the land at sunrise, an amazing pointed triangle that reaches out to the coast. The area that this shadow casts across the river, which is the river that Taranaki supposedly came up to where it now resides, is also the general location of a township called Parihaka. This place is an important place in national history and, in fact, global history, yet not much is really said about it. Not many people really know the true story and wonder of what happened in this area. This will reflect back on the mountain. Te Toka a Rohoto, the Guidestone's flight, was called Te Whitinga o Rohoto, and so the sacred hill was named in remembrance of this, becoming Puke Te Whiti. This hill was a par site as well. It's an ancient burial ground, and some very serious people are buried there. It is the most sacred site on all of the mountain. This is also the place of which the great Taranaki prophet Te Whiti o Rongomai was named after. In 1900 he made a speech in which he spoke about the origins of his name. In the speech, Te Whiti tells his own story. My name is taken from the hill Puke Te Whiti, which stands as a sentinel guarding the past, the present, and the future. Like Puke Te Whiti, I stand as a sentinel. Not one bit of land will be given over to strangers with my consent. Even now, Te Whiti's name is associated with justice, peace, and freedom for oppressed people. The name Te Whiti o Rongomai, celestial flight of the Shining One, resting at Puke Te Whiti, came to symbolize, according to descendants, the essence of the mission that he, with Tohu Kakaki, was called to work out in the Māori world. An ancient prophecy received by Aotearoa's first Māori king foretold the appearance of two spiritual birds of knowledge on the peak of Mount Taranaki. Immediately before his coronation at Ngaruawahia, Patatau Wherewhero had a dream. His descendants remember it something like this. Towards the south there is a sacred mountain. Below the shadow of the mountain there is a tree with a branch, and on this branch are two birds of knowledge. These birds will receive the message from on high, and they will lead the people into everlasting life. It is believed these visions were of the pacifist leaders Tohu Kakaki and Te Whiti o Rongomai. They were the two rangatira of Parihaka, a peaceful village that sits between Mount Taranaki and the Tasman Sea. This settlement was also the heart of Maori opposition to the taking of their lands by European settlers and the government. On 5th of November 1881, Parihaka was invaded by about 1,500 armed troops. Instead of facing violent battle, the soldiers were welcomed into the village by women doing poi dances and were offered food. In answer, the military men broke up the village, slaughtered livestock, destroyed gardens, arrested hundreds of people and scattered many more. Parihaka still stands today a few kilometres inland from Pangarehu, but it is just a shadow of the bustling place it was from the 1860s through to 1907, when the leaders both died. Prior to this, in 1879, one of the most courageous and creative forms of political protest ever conceived in this country was enacted. Maori men from the community of Parihaka began to plough up the land of Pākehā settlers. This action, taken under the leadership of Te Whiti and Tohu, was the community's response to the government's repeated failure to deal honourably with Taranaki Maori over the land. The ploughmen knew what they were letting themselves in for. They would face Pākehā wrath. They would face almost certain arrest and incarceration, but they rallied to the words of Te Whiti. Go put your hands to the plough, look not back. If any come with guns and swords, be not afraid. If they smite you, smite not in return. If they rend you, be not discouraged. Another will take up the good work. In short order, more than 400 Parihaka ploughmen were deported and imprisoned for up to 2 years, sometimes as far away as Hokitika and Dunedin. Not one was ever tried in the court of law. The government found it convenient to suspend the right to a trial and passed a series of draconian laws under the guise of national emergency that became progressively more desperate and unjust. There were also atrocities. When arrested, some ploughmen were tied to a horse and dragged around a paddock. That brutality is remembered in the name Totoia, which means dragging, given to some Parihaka children to preserve the memory of those times. Another name bestowed on children was Naru Keruke, the discarded body. When some of the ploughmen asked Tohu what should be done if they were met with violence, Tohu answered, "Gather up the earth on which the blood is spilt and bring it to Parihaka." The people of Parihaka all wore white feathers in their hair. Early on, the albatross, the raukura, was identified as being part of Parihaka. The two prophets chose it via certain events, which sort of fits in with the premonition of the Maori king. The raukura became a symbol of peace and pride for the people of Parihaka. When Te Whiti died in 1907, a kaumatua called Charles Waitara spoke at his tangi, saying, "Let this be clearly understood by all Maoris, Pakehas, and all other nations. The white feather is a sign that all nations through the world will be one, black, red, and all others who are called human beings. This feather will be the sign of unity, prosperity, peace, and goodwill." The bone of the albatross is often used to carve the flute that you hear at the beginning of this video. Furthering the influence of the mountain of Puke Te Whiti, creating the inspiration of Te Whiti, it has been found that in turn Te Whiti inspired Mahatma Gandhi, who in turn inspired Martin Luther King. In recent years, posthumously, both the Mahatma Gandhi Foundation and the Martin Luther King Foundation have visited Parihaka and given their support and thanks and recognized the origins of their movement. One of the things that I found in supplement to having noticed the similar geometrical pattern to the Mandelbrot set was this image from the book Harmonic 33, written by the late New Zealander Bruce Cathy, who was the first person to discover the world energy grid. Here we see a line running from D'Urville Island to the Kaipara Harbour, passing across the top of Mount Taranaki. This is said to be the first track line ever discovered of the world grid. The Mandelbrot set. In these images we see various versions of the Mandelbrot set being displayed. I can't claim to know that much about the mathematics behind the Mandelbrot set. I do know that it is an expression of probability. In this poster we have the bigger circle named main cartoid, and we have the smaller circle called main bulb. This image shows the basic XY axes with the numerical values that the Mandelbrot set is created by. Noting the main bulb is -1 in the center. This image shows the Mandelbrot set roughly overlaid over top of the mountain. The same place on main bulb in the center is the location of Puketawhiti. This image shows the Mandelbrot overlay accompanied by the track line of Bruce Cathy's world energy grid passing through in yellow, touching the positions it does. The previous observations I have been aware of for some time, but it was only in the last year or 18 months of which I noticed this anomaly. You will see the central North Island mountains there to the right of the image, and you may perhaps notice the similarities it has with the form of Mount Taranaki, although it is mirrored with the angle that it is twisted on, facing the opposite direction. The Whanganui River runs nearly through the mirror line, through that green area of hill country between the two mountain ranges. In this close-up we get to see Lake Taupo to the north, and there seems to be something I've yet to understand in the lineup of these two features. In this close-up you can see the lake, which is said to be the space that Taranaki once inhabited. Here I have drawn out two outlines of Mandelbrot set and placed a mirror line approximately. Here I have drawn a line through the Mandelbrot's and let them intersect to see the angle, which to me appears to be a golden triangle. And here the same drawing but with the mirror line placed. I have noted how these lines seem to fall nicely on top of different geographic features across both the north and top of the South Island. And here I have extended those lines further at a greater distance, zoomed out, noting how the lines interact with the continent of Zealandia and how the left sloping line nearly reaches the Chatham Islands and how the right sloping line reaches out to the trench and down, lining up with the point at the south tip of Zealandia. Also noting that the left sloping line running to the north hits New Caledonia, the very tip of Zealandia. The next bunch of images are for interest's sake. Where prompted by noticing mirror lines, I decided to play with the Mandelbrot set mirrored within the mountain range. This image is based on the equations surrounding the Mandelbrot set. It is a tracking outcome where a value is put in to the equation and the pathways that it makes has been recorded, something to that effect. I, for interest's sake, overlaid this upon the Mandelbrot set mountain and found that it overlaid even more geographical features within the mountain. This triangle was drawn by initiating it via the left line, which is the world grid line. Here I noticed that the angle of the world grid line seemed to be parallel to the submerged coast of Zealandia, shown in yellow. Thank you very much for watching. That concludes the information in this video. I hope there was something of interest in it for you. I don't know what form of conclusion to draw from this information myself. It's just some things for your interest. Once again, thank you very much and look forward to next time.
She's my one and only, one of you, the rock in my life, my ocean, the one that I can rely on. She's my Maunga, she's my long white cloud, she's my Maunga, she's my long white cloud. One of you deep like me, we share a common bond. One of you deep like me, from river down to the sea, standing at the base of my Maunga, yeah. Standing at the base of my